I wish to invite everyone to the dedication ceremony this afternoon of the Bassett and Crowell Fields. My name is Christopher Clark. I'm the town administrator here in the community, and it gives me great pleasure to come out and be able to do this afternoon. It's nice that the weather cooperated with us. We're a little concerned that it may be a little too hot, but I think so far so good. One of the things I would just like to just kind of acknowledge is, you know, things don't get done by one person alone. And I do want to just kind of thank some folks for their efforts in having the fields be built initially. So I do wish to just extend personal thanks to Chris Nickerson and Richard Berube and the Highway Department, as well as Lynn Cooper as the DPW director, for their efforts of having these fields come out. I think they've done an outstanding job, and they've really created a real treasure for the community. And like I said, nothing happens in and of itself in a vacuum. So we also very much appreciate the efforts of the Recreation and the Youth Commission, as well as the Recreation Director. I know Eric Beebe, I think in the back of the room here, or the back of the field. And obviously, nothing gets done in government without money. So the Community Preservation Committee, I appreciate their support in terms of dollars and to make this project happen. And as always, anytime I attend an event as the town administrator, I always like to acknowledge the Board of Selectmen. Obviously, I work for the Board of Selectmen. It's the Board of Selectmen that ultimately has things and makes things happen. And I saw Larry Ballantyne earlier, so I appreciate Larry coming out. I don't know if there was any other selectmen that are here. Oh, Mr. McManus too. I didn't see you, Ed, sorry. So just wish to acknowledge them for coming out this afternoon. Also, the Community Center Department and its director, Carolyn Carey. I don't know if Carolyn's in the crowd. I see her in the back row. Too many folks in the back row. Well, I've only been here for a short time, and I think in order to do justice to the work that's been done and the dedication that are here today, that we give an opportunity for representatives of the families to actually come up and say a few words in regards to each of the efforts today for the dedication. So I'd like to invite the first speaker is David Bassett, who is son of Earle F. Bassett, speaking on behalf of the dedication of the softball field. And after each speaker, what we'll do is maybe we'll have the families come up, and we have ribbons, so we'll do a ceremonial ribbon cutting after each of the families, and that will be a good opportunity for photos as well. Mr. Bassett?
I'll try to get through this as quickly as possible. My brothers and I were growing up. We wondered why so many evenings my father was not at home. And as we grew older, we learned that he was attending meetings. And when we became adults, we realized that he was the founder of the Harwich Playground and Recreation Commission, now known as the Harwich Recreation and Youth Commission. The Harwich Little League came into being as a result of our father's support, as did the Little League field, constructed under the town's recreation program. At our father's suggestion, voters at town meeting acquired the large tract of land adjoining Brooks Park, what he identified as the future civic and recreational development. Can everybody hear me? Yeah. Our father was one of the original members of the Harwich Boy Scout Troop number 76 when it was organized around 1913. In his later years, he was instrumental in reactivating the troop. I learned that in the 1930s, my father worked on a federal recreation project. This work germinated his interest in developing comprehensive recreational program for Harwich, his hometown. So in 1950, this led to the formation of the Harwich Playground and Recreation Commission. My father was appointed one of the first members of the commission, and served for 10 years. Through his efforts, the town secured the recreation building and daily for many years, offering a wide range of activities for both youngsters and adults. This building is now the Harwich Junior Theater, better known as HJT, the Center for Arts. Well, my father was chairman of the Harwich Playground and Recreation Commission. HJT was born, and that's the Harwich Junior Theater. Received national recognition in 1955 and continues to be hailed as one of the nation's most outstanding children's theaters. My father, in his wisdom, organized the Harwich Recreation Advisory Council, made up of interested townspeople, to administer the finances of the fledgling children's theater because it was legally impossible for the Playground and Recreation Commission to do so. My father devoted much time to the theater and was largely responsible for its initial success by publicizing its activities through his love of photography. At the time of his death, he was the proprietor of the Orleans Camera Shop. When I returned to Harwich after 30 years off Cape, I doubted if anyone remembered who my father was, let alone accomplishments on behalf of the Harwich townspeople, mostly the young people. I was pleased to learn that Bob Doan remembers his mother, Virginia, who was one of the initial organizers of HGT, often declaring during the theater's formative years, well, we'll have to see what Earle says. We'll have to find out what Earle thinks about that. My father truly was the father of HJT, and I also learned that Sheldon Thayer remembers my father. Sheldon became the youngest elected recreation commissioner and calls my father his mentor, quote unquote. Sheldon says Earle Bassett taught me a great deal about our town and how its government works. We were pleased that our father was voted in the Harwich Hall of Fame a couple of years ago. When your next visit to the community center, you can walk through the Hall of Fame and view my father's picture and read the nomination. At the time of our father's passing in 1961 at age 59, the Cape Cod Times wrote, quote, "The success of the Harwich Junior Theater and other activities promoted by the Playground and Recreation Commission are due largely to the untiring efforts of Mr. Bassett. On behalf of my family and for myself, thank you to the Recreation and Youth Commissioners and the Board of Selectmen for commemorating all my father did for Harwich by naming this beautiful new softball field, Earle F. Bassett Field."
Yeah, look before you cut. Next person I'd like to invite up, someone actually I've known in the time I've been here off and on a pretty frequent basis, is William Crowell, son of Frederick Crowell, who's here today as well, speaking on behalf of the dedication of the Fred W. Crowell Baseball Field. And afterwards, after the remarks, we'll do a ribbon cutting as well. Bill?
Good afternoon. I'm Bill Crowell, Fred's son, and I wanted to thank you all for coming today. And my thanks to the Parks and Recreation Commission for originating this idea, as I understand it, of naming the baseball field after my father, and to the selectmen for approving it. So thank you all for that. If you don't know my dad, He's seated in the wheelchair here in the front row where he should be. More about him later. His brother, Eve, is sitting next to him, Ralph Robert Crowell, but he's known by everybody locally as Eve. And Eve had to was supposed to go to Connecticut today, but canceled that so he could be here. So we appreciate that, Eve. Since this is a family affair, I wanted to introduce some of Fred's family. His daughter Gail is seated behind him. If you'd raise your hand, Gail.
Hi, Gail.
And his other daughter Terry is seated next to her. Gail's partner Bruce is here. Terry's husband Bob is here. My two older brothers unfortunately could not make it due to conflicts, but some of the grandchildren are here. So we have my daughter Molly is here, and we have Lucas Pina and Kenny Pina are both here, and Kenny's wife Heidi. I'm sorry, Lucas's wife, sorry. It's a big family. And their new daughter. And there's many more that would have liked to be here, but we're also working, and it's in the middle of the day. So I appreciate everybody that was able to make it. Eve's daughter Martha is married to John Schiffner, and fortunately they could not be here because John is the manager of the Chatham Anglers in the Cape Cod League, and he's done serious damage over the years to the Harwich Mariners. So, my father's best friend, Don and Francis Nesmith, wanted to come, but they are unable to drive and couldn't make it. But they're here in spirit. Now, just to straighten one thing out, I'm going to depend on everybody here to spread the word. It is going to be the Fred Crowell Field, okay? It's not Crowell. If you hear anybody say Crowell, you know they just came over the bridge. They're a wash ashore. Straighten them out, please. And lately I hear it's the Fred Cromwell Field. Also totally incorrect. Okay, it's the Fred Crowell Field. Unfortunately, there's somebody named Frank Crowley on there. Don't be misled. It's Crowell all the way. Okay. Now, Dad, if you were left-handed, would you raise your left hand for a minute, please? Just your left arm. You can see it's a little bit bloodied. It got better in the last few days because he's still playing in the senior softball league. He's 91, and he was trying to stretch a double into a triple, and he slid headfirst into third and scraped his arm up a little bit. But anyway, my father was born in 1923 in Harwich here, before the Cape Cod Hospital, and he was a baseball star for Harwich High School, as was his father, Fred Crowell, before him. And just quickly on his father, the legend has it that his father pitched for Harwich in the morning on July 4th, rode his bike to Chatham, and pitched for Chatham in the afternoon. Fred signed a professional baseball contract out of high school with the old Boston Braves. He had a tryout at Nickerson Field up at Boston University, now Boston University Field, with his best friend Waddy Eldridge, and they both tried out and were signed by the Boston Braves. But my dad and 5 young friends from Chatham and Harwich decided to go to the University of Alabama for an engineering degree. So they got on a train, Sherman Burson and a few others, and they all took the train down to Tuscaloosa and were there for a year. And then Dad enlisted in the Navy and became, this was during the outset of World War II, he became a fighter pilot and flew off of the aircraft carriers USS Yorktown and the USS Hornet. During the training for that, he trained at Chapel Hill in North Carolina. He played on the U.S. Navy baseball team. And you probably saw the great article a couple months ago in the Cape Cod Times by Doug Frazier with a picture of my dad that included the picture he has from the Navy baseball team, and it has an autographed. Standing with him is Ted Williams, and that's autographed by Ted. Johnny Pesky is kneeling, and that's autographed and by Johnny. And then Johnny Sane, if you remember Spawn Sane to Pray for Rain, he was on that team. So as Gene Levanchi said last year when we were on the Fox zip trip to Harwich, down at South Harwich Beach, Gene Levanchi said, geez, you had a few slackers on that team, Fred. So he always kept that autographed picture at our house. You couldn't visit us without seeing that picture. He always kept it close to his heart, and he had prints made and hand-delivered one to the Ted Williams Museum when they instituted that in Florida a while ago. And so they showcased that and said it was donated by Fred Crowell from Harwich. When they closed the museum, we didn't know what happened to it, but my oldest brother Tim was at the Tropicana Field for the Tampa Bay Rays a few years ago, and it's on display there. So if you're down there for spring training or whatever, you go to a game, make sure you see that picture. If you can't make it, go down to the Hot Stove Saloon in Harwich Court, and they have a picture, a print, as you enter on the right, and there's a little tag on it that says Freddie Crowell from Harwich. My father married his high school sweetheart, Carolyn Grayson Crowell, during the war, and upon returning to Harwich, they decided to raise a family. So he gave up the minor league career. First of all, he didn't get shot down, which is important because we wouldn't be here, my brothers and sisters and I. And if he hadn't decided to give up the baseball career and raise a family in Harwich, we probably wouldn't be here also. So good decisions, Dad. He went to work for his father, and with his father and brother Eve, they had the family construction and crane business in Harwich for over 40 years. Dad never lost his love for baseball, however, and he played on the old Harwich Town team back when it was the tradesman, and you left your glove at your position and at the end of the inning and went back in to bat. And I'm told, because I don't have a specific memory of it, but he was still playing into the early 50s, and his sweet left-handed swing that he modeled after Ted Williams and his power were legendary on the town team. I still run into people that remember when he played. That town team has now evolved into the Harwich Mariners, and coincidence, when Ben Whitehouse said, I'll donate $10,000 for lights if you folks in the town build a new field, name it after me, Fred Crowell Construction was hired, and our family built that field. And it's now the showcase field in the Cape League. He also participated in constructing the Little League field just down the street that fortunately is remaining there to this day in spite of the new regional high school. So my Little League coach Jim Nicular is here today, and he remembers many games, as do I, on that field. So one thing's for sure, and my brothers and sisters and family would bear this out, is that if my mother was here today, she would have been crying starting about 20 minutes ago and sobbing quietly to herself and appreciating everything that's going on. So my father, myself, my family, and our friends are extremely proud and honored that the field will be named the Fred W. Crowell Field. Thank you very much for being here.
Actually, you right there.
He's a lefty.
He's a lefty.
Oh, lefty. Yeah, that's what's right.
Okay.
Do you want to say anything? You are.
You are.
The one with the scissors. Gotta cut the fingernails.
Later.
Look at me. Look up for 1 minute. Look up.
Dad,
Look up for 1 minute so you get a good picture.
One,
Smile.
two,
Smile.
three.
Look up.
Okay, great.
All right, go ahead. Keep going. Keep going.
You're doing good.
Yeah, we didn't bring it
Thank you.
Coming up behind you.
I think it's kind of a fitting tribute in some ways that we have such a distinguished veteran with us today. I'm a little bit of an amateur military history buff, and boy, I'm just amazed that you participated and survived those battles. So what a tremendous legacy, and to have the legacy that you've left. And part of that legacy, I think, was in the Selectmen's decision and the Recreation Commission's decision was that they wanted to name this facility the Veterans Memorial Recreation Complex on behalf of all the veterans that have served throughout the time from Harwich. And today, to speak to the veterans' contributions is Will Remillard, who is our veterans agent here in town.
Thank you, Chris. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm really honored to have been invited to participate in today's dedication of our Veterans Memorial Recreation Complex, Crowell Baseball Field and Earle F Softball. I just want to say a little bit about Fred and his military history. Fred Crowell was an ensign, naval aviator, as Bill said, served on board the USS Hornet and USS Yorktown in the Pacific Theater. And if you are a little bit of a history buff, you'll know that those two ships were very instrumental. They played important roles in turning the tide of that Pacific Theater operation against the Imperial Japanese Navy. Fred received the Pacific Theater Medal with 3 battle stars, the Philippine Ribbon with 1 battle star, and the United States Navy Air Medal with 1 gold star. They don't give these medals out to just anyone. He served his country well. Over the years, many of our veterans have played ball in the fields of Harwich, and they learned how to be a part of a team, and they carried that life skill into their service to their country. I'd like to mention by name just a few of Harwich's World War II veterans who passed on earlier this year. John J. Rose Jr., U.S. Army Sergeant, Staff Sergeant; Rufus Pina, U.S. Army Tech 5, Battery C, 635th Army Artillery in the Battle of Bulge; and Wallace M. Rainio, Wally Rainio, Tech 5, a medic in the Mideast campaign in Iraq. And we're still there so many years hence. They played ball in the same ball fields. They fought in the same battlefields. It is right that they will be memorialized and honored for their service with the dedication of this Veterans Memorial Recreation Complex. On behalf of all of our veterans, I would like to thank the Recreation Commission and the Town of Harwich for this honor in naming the park for our veterans and for your continued support of all of our veterans' programs and services. Thank you very much. I'd like to welcome all the veterans that are present to come up and assist with the ribbon cutting. And you know, we have James Marsline, a World War II veteran, Mark London, I think Steve Chandler, Barbara Bolus, a Vietnam era veteran.
Come on up, please.
And if I haven't named you, come up anyway. Mr. Marsline, distinguished World War II veteran.
Hold on, big smiles first before you cut.
1, 2, 3, smile, smile.
Just one last thing, we actually encourage you to kind of stay and linger if you're interested, and hopefully some of the folks will stick around, and if you have any interactions that you'd like to have. But we do have cake and refreshments available under the tent, and I do wish to just thank Linda St. Pierre, who is our town chef, for doing the cooking. And that concludes the services this afternoon. Thank you for coming.